Welcome everybody to the start of a series of short films about my journey through Terraria's Master Revengeance mode using the Calamity mod. If you don't know what the Calamity mod is in Terraria, it is essentially a mod pack that changes the base game by adding hours of endgame content, new enemies and bosses, a new rogue class, new biomes, and even harder difficulties beyond regular master mode. I've tested my hand at Terraria's legendary For the Worthy Seed, and now it is time to dip my toes into modded Terraria by playing Calamity on Master Revengeance difficulty for the very first time. I went in completely blind so that I could have as raw of an experience as possible playing this mod. I've never played a mod pack before, so this was going to be a crazy fun journey filled with lots of triumph and failure in this exciting new world of Terraria. This video took nearly 40 hours of gameplay time, planning and editing out to make sure that I could provide you all with the best viewing experience possible. It took a lot of work to make it, and I sure hope that you enjoy the ride with me. I would greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like on the video, shared it with your friends, and if you are feeling really generous, why not subscribe to the channel as well. Without further ado, let's get into the story of how I spent my first ever 50 days in Terraria Calamity's Master Revengeance mode. It's day one of this exciting new adventure in Terraria, and the first thing I have to do on this mod pack is enable Revengeance mode. From there, I could now begin my journey in this world. I started by opening my starter kit inside the shell of a wooden base. Soon after, I found some of the new enemies of this mod pack in the form of robots at the pond nearby. Unfortunately, it was not long before I suffered my first death by the hand of a saucer laser. Really? Oh my god, no. Never mind, first death is to the saucer laser of Calamity Master Revengeance, and I do a saucer laser. With that out of the way, it was time to start adding my base. I then decided it would be a good idea to get a survey of the land and what was around me. I soon found the corruption on the left side of my world just after looting a precious chest. In this mod pack, there are new abilities that can be used, such as Rage and Adrenaline. Essentially, Rage is charged up by your proximity to enemies, and being near bosses triples its charging rate. When the meter is full and the Rage button is used, the player receives a damage boost of 35%. Adrenaline, on the other hand, is charged up by your ability to not get hit during a boss fight for a set duration of time. When the meter is fully charged, the player receives a damage boost of 200%. If you are lucky and skilled enough, you can stack Rage and Adrenaline at the same time. Since I was new to this mod, I did not yet have any of my keybinds set for these new abilities, and I had to set them. From there, I made 4 rooms at my base so that way NPCs could begin moving in, and on the first day, the merchant decided to come join me. I also made a sign at the base so that I could keep an in-game tracker for which day I was on. When night began to fall, I did not want to venture outside any longer, so I took to the underground by starting my hell shaft in order to find precious ores and other valuables. It didn't take too long before I found some ores, as well as a timely demise to a red slime. I'm dead again. Damn it. That slime encounter did not go as intended, but I eventually came back for revenge. It is Revengeance mode after all. On day 2, the Demolitionist arrived during my mining expedition, and I drove a minecart straight through an enemy to commit the act of vehicular manslaughter. Ooh, vehicular manslaughter. I was looking underground for more than just ore, as down here there were life crystals, gems, and abandoned buildings that housed chests filled with loot such as accessories. Soon I began finding these abandoned buildings and got early game accessories such as the Cloud in a Bottle, which would help with my mobility. Given that this was a mod pack that added tons of new content to the game, I wanted to try some of it out as soon as possible. One such addition was the Feller of Evergreen's axe, which was a better axe for smacking down trees. I made new armor in the form of wood and iron, and some new weapons to make exploring a little bit easier because any extra bit I could get certainly counted. With my new loadout, I continued down my hell shaft, finding more minecart tracks that led me to the underground jungle. It was here that I found some sort of weird spaceship/jungle temple thing. What is that over there? Spaceship? What kind of jungle temple is this? Well, it turns out that this place was a laboratory, but I just didn't know what its functions were yet. I died exploring this lab to a pesky jungle bat. Oh. Oh, that hurt. Yeah, that hurt. There are turrets down there. What in God's name?
Since this lab was in the jungle where enemies were harder and spawn rates were higher, it made exploring it early on more difficult than other areas. Come day 3 and I was adding to my base. I needed more buildings for more NPCs and storage space, so I added a large open room for crafting stations, paintings, different lighting, and more. I then went back to the lab where I learned from the hologram about engraved IDs, but I wasn't sure that that was something I could actually use and engage with. I found a gem cache, which was vital for making a gem hook to help with my mobility. I fought a new mob to me known as the Emerald Crawler, which, as you might guess, dropped an emerald when it was killed. With my new loot, I made better armor in the form of tungsten, a golden pickaxe, and more mana stars to name a few upgrades. The one thing I was really lacking early on was HP. I needed to find life crystals. With this in mind and having explored parts already, it wouldn't take too long for me to find my first couple of them. Fortunately, soon after laying eyes on those precious hearts, I died. Again.
I need that. Fuck. 2 of them right there, okay.
Day 4 was quite interesting because I made a big mistake. I went to the corruption biome trying to explore and I found this glob-looking thing on the surface known as a hive tumor. It didn't attack me, but I could attack it, and so I thought maybe I would get some free loot. So I attacked it as much as I could before I found out what would really happen.
I don't know what this is, but it needs to die. Oh god, it's a boss! Bro! I was activating a boss? I just thought I was like a spawner for them or something, man.
Yep, so it turns out that breaking the hive tumor spawns in the hive mind boss, and as you just saw, I died instantly. I was not prepared for that whatsoever, but then again, sometimes you have to make mistakes to learn something, and this time around I definitely learned what the tumors are and can make use of that information at a later time. Since the left side of my world was corrupted, I sought out a path eastward towards the above ground jungle. Making my way through, I soon found a giant world tree where, towards its roots, I stumbled upon a colony of giant beehives. I have never seen this many beehives spawning this closely together before, so that was quite interesting. I then made it to the edge of the world, discovering the Eastern Ocean biome. I took a dive into the depths of the waters, clutching onto every bit of loot from the chests hidden down below. Returning home with a full inventory, I sorted through my newly acquired goodies and began again into the mines. I was taking a nice breezy ride on the minecart when I suddenly came across a strong gust of explosive power.
40 to die. Nice. Go back. Oh shit!
Speaking of explosive power, I needed to bomb my way through a beehive in order to keep mining downwards. So I tossed some bombs below me and accidentally blew up the queen bee boss spawner and died rather instantly.
Fuck me.
Back at the base, I found the Calamity mod music attached to a statue that I could place down and listen to from the comfort of my home. I found this music to be quite peaceful for when I was plotting and preparing anything and everything at the base.
I will take that.
It was now day 5 and I kept looting those abandoned houses in the underground. I found items such as Hermes boots, which allowed me to run faster, aiding my mobility, and a life regeneration band, which, you guessed it, increases your life regeneration, which is useful, no doubt. I then found Demonite in the world and reached Hell, collecting myself a Hell Forge for the base. I added a clock so that way I could keep better track of the days, as well as the day and night cycle for when I was planning to fight bosses and things of that nature. I added more storage space for chests, crafted a diamond hook to be more mobile, and a bass statue which increased my defense whenever I was near it. I also made full golden armor and saw its unique set bonus, which included added chances to get gold coins dropped from all enemies, including bosses. Using all of these new goodies, I went down into the underground jungle where I found another lab. It was here that I acquired several new items such as mysterious circuitry, dubious plating, and suspicious scrap to name a few. I was not sure what these new items did, but given that they were from the lab, I figured they might have some vital importance at some point. On day 6, I ventured past the corruption and found the snow biome. Here there was a little wooden house stuck in the snow which I looted. Beyond the snow biome, I came across a dungeon, something I was not yet ready to explore as I hadn't killed Skeletron yet. So, I continued past the dungeon and found a new biome, that being the irradiated ocean. I found an item known as the Effigy of Decay, which allows nearby players to breathe underwater and be immune to sulfuric poisoning, which a player obtained by swimming in the irradiated waters, something you certainly do not want to build a lot of. I knew that I was going to need a lot of health in order to traverse this world more successfully and to fight the many bosses soon to come. So I was going to need life crystals. In fact, I wanted to max mine out and reach 400 HP. I then took some Splunker potions into the underground to aid my search of life crystals. I found more life crystals in areas such as the glowing mushroom biome, one of my favorite biomes to come across. I always loved the blue color. Also, at some point I found a rover drive, which was a new accessory that gave my player an energy shield that could absorb 20 damage, and when the shield was active, greatly increased my defense stat. To round out my first Terraria week on day 7, I went looking for more life crystals traversing biomes such as the granite and marble biomes down below. At some point I had made an emerald staff, which was turning out to be a really good magic item for me to use early on against all of these mobs. I found a really cool chest in the glowing mushroom biome that contained good items and even 3 truffle worms for the Duke Fishron boss to spawn in. I was in no way going to use those truffle worms anytime soon, but it was an interesting thing to find given that this was early game in pre-hard mode. I spent the rest of the day looking for life crystals and exploring labs along the way, still unsure what to do with the labs and the loot inside them. On day 8, I felt an evil presence watching me. I knew that this message meant the Eye of Cthulhu was going to spawn in. The first 2 bosses we saw earlier were ones I accidentally spawned in, but now this one the game was forcing me to face. I was in no position to fight the Eye of Cthulhu at that time, so when he spawned in I just gave it my best shot, expecting to lose.
Well, did I kill it? I did not get to make anything. Bro, chill. Bro, I could have healed right there. I choked the heal. I literally was able to talk to her and everything, and I choked the heal. He's gone.
With that expected death, I knew that I soon was going to take on that boss. I just didn't have an arena or any potions prepared yet, so as soon as I did, I would take on the eyeball for real. Come day 9, I began making an actual boss arena so that way the next time something randomly spawned in the world, I could have a fighting chance at killing it. I made a fairly decent sized one that would work for the meantime, with the intention to add more to it soon. I then found more life crystals, maxing my HP out at 400, so it was just about time to begin gathering the necessary materials to start fighting bosses. Finally, we arrive at day 10 and I'm thinking about how to set myself up for bossing. I started making a plant farm so that I could produce more potions. I went out and farmed eyeballs to get lenses in order to craft an Eye of Cthulhu spawner, and also found a corruption effigy in the corruption, which when placed down and the player is near it, grants plus 10% movement speed and critical chance, with a decrease in 5% damage to my damage reduction. With the early game looting and exploring largely out of the way, my mind turned to killing bosses. On day 11 I expanded my base for more NPCs to move in, and added heart lanterns to the boss arena for added life regeneration. I used the necessary materials to build an Eye of Cthulhu spawner, and gathered my gear as it was now time to officially fight my first boss of the game, the Eye of Cthulhu.
Here we go. Almost there, baby. Come on, like one more hit. There we go. Beautiful, 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 beautiful.
And would you look at that, the fight was a success. I now had my first boss of Calamity Master Revengeance mode down and out as I gained momentum on this exciting journey. I was beginning to feel the hunger to hunt down more bosses, slaying them in all their might, and in hope of obtaining what new or old loot they may have. So, on day 12 I went to the underground corruption biome to spawn in the Eater of Worlds and take my chances against the flailing giant creature.
This thing has a lot more HP than I remember. Okay, well now I got multiple heads coming at me. It just made things a lot more difficult. I'm taking a lot more damage, a lot more damage. Oh, I messed up. Too many heads.
Unfortunately, I did not have any first-timers luck on that attempt. I split the worm too many times and was taking too much head-on damage from the front end of each new miniature worm. I was going to need some more time to reconsider how to achieve victory in the Eater of Worlds domain. Day 13 swam around and I was surprised by a new event taking place in the world. Suddenly, acid rain had begun to fall at the irradiated ocean. I ran my way over there and started the long fight against the acid rain mobs to end the event and stop the world from imaginatively eroding away. These new mobs in the fight were certainly harder than others I have encountered as they hit very hard. I played a relatively safe strategy during the fight so that I could come out on top on my first try and use whatever materials and loot they dropped to potentially grow my loadout even further. The mobs in the acid rain event had dropped lots of sulfuric scales which could be used to craft many rogue class items, one of the new classes added with the Calamity mod. Since I didn't know anything about the new rogue class and how to effectively use it, I wasn't super intrigued to make and use much of those new craftable items. On day 14, I was thinking all about Calamity.
Calamity, calamity, calamity.
What could lead to more Calamity than my progress in the world, making my character stronger, and giving myself a better chance at being the reckoning for each and every boss I fought? So, I spent this day expanding my Eater of Worlds arena to better my odds of survival. Then, with this larger arena, I once took all my strength and prowess into the dens of shadow orbs and summoned once more the mighty Eater of Worlds for a battle between life and death.
Truck is the front. The back take damage on its own. Sit here, heal for a minute. Keep it going, keep it going. Almost there, baby. That hurt. Oh yeah, this boy's done for. You're done for, bro. Chopped liver. That's a dub. Give me all that. Oh yeah. Eat it up.
Feeling triumphant with my victory over the dastardly worm, I created a full set of shadow scale armor which vastly increased my mobility stats and damage output. Day 15, I used my new items and armor to defeat the Goblin army for the first time rather soundly. This was a good milestone for me to reach because I could then find the Goblin Tinkerer underground, which would be super useful for obtaining a Tinkerer table that combines accessories together. So, right after the victory, I went underground and found the Goblin himself. I then bought the desired table from him as well as rocket boots and began combining accessories. On day 16, I collected lots of clay to make more pots for my unfinished plant farm. The more plants I could grow, the more potions I could make, so this was an important step in progressing. I also made the arena for Queen Bee, the next boss on my hit list. Then day 17 came around, and with my newly made Queen Bee arena, I descended underground, fully prepared to take on this mighty queen of a bee and take her hive and honey for myself.
Alright, let's fight him. Oh, baby, what you got for me? Getting there. Oh, I jumped right into that. There it is. Queen Bee down, baby. That wasn't too bad at all.
And just like that, another boss has bitten the dust, and I got to cross another name off the long list of bosses I intended to face on what would be the craziest journey in Terraria I had ever come to know. With all this talk about bosses, it makes you wonder if I was ever going to do anything else. And for a moment, the answer is no. Because on day 18, I began setting up the arena to fight the hive mind in the corruption biome. This was the first boss I accidentally spawned in very early on, and I was now hungry and eager for my revenge. After setting up the arena, I needed to wait for hive tumors to spawn in, so I went to the jungle biome to create some jungle housing for the NPCs I knew I wanted to live there, and so that way I could have a jungle pylon in the future to teleport to. However, as night began to fall, I knew it was time to prepare for a battle with the hive mind. I gathered all the necessary equipment, made a short trek to the corruption, and braced myself for a battle with a brand new boss in this mod, and boy, I was excited to fight it.
Alright. I was just gonna stay there. Oh no, it's coming, it's coming. I locked myself in. So I get adrenaline if I don't get hit. should start doing like a couple hundred. Acid rain, you got all that? Open up. Last 1,000. Let's go, baby. First try. The sky is glittering with cyan light.
What an absolute blessing and fun fight to have in Terraria. It was new and I haven't experienced a new boss battle in a long time, so I thoroughly enjoyed the fight and was even more excited for what other cool bosses might come later. On day 19, I used the new materials obtained from the Hive Mind to craft the perfect dark sword and Shade Rain staff. The Shade Rain staff later on proved to be an extremely useful magic weapon as it shredded through enemies. My next point of progression was that of the dungeon. I needed to defeat Skeletron in order to gain access to the depths of the dungeon and whatever loot may lie there. So I ran my way west towards the dungeon and began making the arena required for the fight soon to come. After a few minutes of mining and placing wooden platforms, I went home to gather my supplies for a fight that night with Skeletron. With all my equipment in hand, I spoke with the old man at the dungeon to relieve him of his curse.
Oh, I forgot the bash statue and everything. You know what, fuck it, we're going for it. Oh my god, well the hands are getting melted. Get the hands out of here right now. Oh, they're gone. Close to the head now. Oh, this thing is insane. Absolutely shreds it. Oh, he just threw his mouse back, okay. That there was probably a time where I probably did have adrenaline, maybe? Definitely rage though. There it is. Adrenaline absolutely erased that fool. Absolutely erased him with the adrenaline and this freaking staff. Oh yeah, get back.
Just like that, another day, another victory for the OGs as Skeletron fell to the newly found might of the Shade Rain staff and adrenaline buff. He got absolutely melted. During my fight with Skeletron, I was definitely starting to notice some of the newly added boss mechanics, which made fighting even the old Terraria bosses quite fun, as I didn't quite know what they would have in store for me. Playing this mod was turning out to be a great idea and the bosses were dropping like flies. So now we are on day 20 and I have to explore the dungeon. When I went into the dungeon, I made sure to pick up all the blue candles to eliminate additional enemy spawns and so that I could use the candles in farms later on. I also mined many of the spikes in the dungeon so that now and in the future my healing wouldn't be stopped by accidentally hitting one. Here in the dungeon I found a variety of loot including an alchemy table, mirror masa, cobalt shield, several clocks, and a bewitching table to name a few. During the exploration of the dungeon I also found something quite new to my eyes. On the west edge of the underground dungeon I found a weird looking wall. I had no idea what this wall was exactly, but my guess was that it was a part of the Abyss biome, a new addition from the Calamity mod. I believe this because the irradiated ocean was on the west edge of the world just after the dungeon itself. I decided to wait before exploring this abyss wall, but it was an important piece of information for me to now have. I then went back home to stow away all of my new supplies and add my new tables to my base. Then, taking my character down towards Hell to retrieve obsidian to make an obsidian shield, as well as to get fire blossoms and loot the shadow chests of the underworld. During both of these dungeon and underworld explorations, I found 2 items that I added to my loadout. The first of which being a new summoning staff that allowed miniature skeletons to follow and attack for me, the second of which being the Dark Lance, which had good range and damage for what I needed at the time. Now, on day 21, I tried to explore the abyss through the wall I had found in the dungeon. The abyss blocks took a while to mine, and I found that I took major damage when exposed to the air in the abyss. So, I needed to find another path into the abyss. I then went to the irradiated ocean and brought my effigy of decay with me so that I could breathe underwater and not get sulfuric poisoning. I then came to find out that once I reached a certain depth of the water, the effects of the effigy no longer worked. I had found a lab at the top of the abyss, but it was hard to explore given the dangerous effects that the abyss had on breathing and toxins, even with the addition of potions such as the Gills potion. On day 22, I decided to continue my reign of hellfire on the bosses of Terraria. I made spawners for both the King Slime and newly added God Slime. I started by taking my chances against the King Slime, and with the loot I had already gathered from my journey thus far, the battle shouldn't be too hard.
Up.
With an easy victory over the King Slime, I was now left to fight the God Slime.
Make sure all the slimes die. Hit that guy. And summon the next one. 44,000 health, okay. More than I anticipated. I'm running out of mana. Oh, it's got hella mana, sorry. Oh god, he hurts bad. Dead, I'm dead. Yeah, there it is. Alright, well that hurt. Definitely not ready for that guy yet.
Well, it turns out that the God Slime hit pretty hard and had the most HP of the bosses I had faced thus far, so I wasn't fully ready to face him yet, but I knew what to expect for the next time, and that information was certainly valuable. Days 23 and 24 were spent working on my jungle house where I wanted to have my jungle pylon, adding to the farm, and exploring the underground desert. In the underground desert, I found an interesting accessory in the form of the Luxor's Gift, which added special projectiles to certain weapons when they were used. I also found a desert medallion which would allow me to spawn in the Desert Scourge, another boss I had never faced before. Held day 25 and I was still exploring the underground desert trying to find any and all loot, new or old. The further I went down into this underground desert, I was slowly reaching a new biome of which contained a load of water. It was an underground water biome below the desert which contained many sorts of crystals, including sea prisms and prism shards, new mobs, and a lab for me to explore. I then finished off day 25 by beginning the preparations for an arena to fight the Desert Scourge boss. Day 26, I finished the arena, gathered all my supplies, and took my chances for the first time ever fighting a boss known only as the Desert Scourge.
There we go.
I'll take fucking done for.
Sorry, golfer. Had to be done.
Nice. Oh, Desert Scourge. Desert wind is blowing fiercely. The depths of the underground desert are rumbling.
With that victory and many bosses down, I was still wondering what was left to explore in the sky. I hadn't really tried looking for any floating islands yet and was wondering what might be up there. I know from other playthroughs that the loot above the surface can sometimes be useful and other times unobtainable until later in the game, so I had to check to be sure. Took some gravity potions and then took flight into the sky for the first time in hopes of finding some new goodies. In the sky, I found a variety of floating mini islands, some containing miniature beehives. I also found a floating skylab, which I ransacked for all of its loot. I found a new type of ore known as aerolite ore, which was new from the mod, but I barely went on to use it, at least in pre-hard mode. Something quite interesting that I did find, however, was a floating crimson biome with crimtane ore. The island also had the crimson chest should I ever receive the crimson key to open it. That was something I needed to remember. Arriving at day 27, I had yet to explore the underground snow biome. It was a goal of mine to try and find many of the labs underground. I figured that each type of underground biome had its own unique giant lab, with loot that I wanted in the form of gold, potential new accessories, plating, metal scraps, and more. So I went to the snow biome, began mining underground, and found several different snow biome items in the frost chests, as well as many spider dens. I had found an underground igloo, as well as the frost key for whenever I may find the frost chest. On day 28, I made a new accessory, that being the horseshoe balloon. I then found and looted the big lab in the underground snow biome. Following that, I made the spawner for the Deerclops boss, another boss I had never encountered in my time playing Terraria. I made preparations for this boss, but did not feel like making an arena to fight it. With the preparations I made, I went to the snow biome to spawn in the Deerclops and take my first ever chances against the deer without any idea as to what sort of mechanics this fight would entail.
26,000 health in the arena. Oh god. Where my minions at? I got no mana regen. Waiting on my mana, you know. I think it's fucking speed. Oh, I might die. A little bit more mana. He's one shot us all health. Okay. Jeez, I actually got worried for a second there. That was close.
With a relatively easy victory, despite having no arena, I was feeling pretty good about the progress I was making in the world. Bosses were dropping regularly, and I was advancing my way to hard mode whilst getting the most out of pre-hard mode that I could. I didn't want to be stagnant in pre-hard mode for too long, but I did want to experience each boss and biome that I could. Then, on day 30, disaster accidentally struck. I was looking for the giant lab in the underworld when my minions had a thought of their own and cast me into the flames of hell to fend for myself.
No. No. My minions. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. Minions! Oh no, I'm at the end of the world. Fine, just kill me. Okay, I want my coins. No, I'm gonna die anyways. At least my coins are up there.
So, I learned that when exploring hell, it might be a good idea to turn my minions off so that way they don't accidentally drop any guide voodoo dolls into the lava and screw me over. I had to go back to hell anyways and finish exploring the lab I had found down there, as well as pick up a decent stockpile of hellstone ore to make potential upgrades in the form of armory and weaponry. Using the newfound hellstone, I did end up making a molten pickaxe, molten ham axe, and molten fury bow. Flying through time, we are on day 31, and I found myself back in the underground water biome where a giant clam tried to sneak up on me. Fortunately for me, the clam did not have such a long lifespan.
There's a boss over here? This thing? Oh, giant clam. Okay. They are fucking them up. That was interesting.
After killing the clam, a new NPC known as Amidias spawned in and sold a bunch of seashell shooting items and water-based items. I really didn't care for them. After that, I explored to the left edge of the underworld and found another new biome that I believe to be called the Ancient Biome. This new place definitely gave some creepy and deathly vibes to it. I enjoyed the exploration process of this place. I found 2 new crafting stations by exploiting here, but wasn't fully sure what I could actually craft with them, so for the meantime they were just going to be household decorations. I must say that each time I explored a new biome, I was very pleasantly surprised by it. The world of Terraria without mods is already a great one, and to have a mod that adds so much to the game but still feels like Terraria is an absolute blessing because the game I already love and am passionate about is only growing to be a greater and greater journey left untapped until I am the one to take the reins and explore it. On day 32, I realized that I hadn't explored the Abyss at all. To be honest, I wasn't even sure if it was possible to properly explore the Abyss in pre-hard mode. Nonetheless, I took some new gear that aided my breathing and survivability, along with some new potions, and tried to explore even further into it. It didn't last long as I flung my way as deep as I could, trying to spot anything new, but in all reality, everything I was passing was new. This journey didn't last long as I died and ended up leaving the Abyss as something to explore later on in hard mode. One thing I have tried to be better at doing when playing Terraria is building and making things look nice. Sure, the mining and bossing are fun, but a large part of the time I spend in the game is spent at my base. So with that being said, I feel like it's important to build a base in a world that is pretty and unique to look at. So I began another project to do just that. I began constructing on my own lab near the surface. The next several days, that being the end of day 32 all the way through day 36, were spent constructing the lab. I had to go underground sometimes to break apart old labs I had previously found to gain the necessary materials to build my own lab near my base. I wasn't sure how I wanted it to look, but as long as I had some kind of lab, I would be pretty happy. By the midday on day 36, I had just that, a completed lab that I was satisfied with. Having finished the lab midday of day 36, I still had time left over to do more, so I managed to make another boss spawner known as Decapdoita, not sure quite how you say that, Decapdoita Sprout, something like that, which would spawn in Crabulon, which was a boss to be fought in the glowing mushroom biome underground. With this new spawner in hand and a few supplies, I made my way underground to take my chances against Crabulon.
Alright. Not a ton of health.
Crabulon turned out to be a pretty easy kill and didn't really drop anything that I wanted to use at that moment. Perhaps playing on another difficulty, or a different class, or just some different style of play would have changed my mind on wanting to use the items. It could also be said that because I already killed him later in the game than most of the other bosses so far, I just didn't need his items as I was already had better options in my inventory. Days 37 and 38 were spent farming for shark fins at the ocean on the east side of the world. I used battle potions and blue candles to increase spawn rates, so that way I could find more shark fins. They took a while to spawn, so I did have to spend multiple days here. I wanted the shark fins so that I could craft a spawner called Seafood to fight a boss known as the Aquatic Scourge. When talking with the guide and testing new materials I'd been finding, I noticed the spawner and that the materials needed were ones that I could technically get at that moment, so surely this was a boss I could fight now or pretty soon. After the 2 days of farming, I finally had enough supplies to craft the seafood item / aquatic scourge spawner. I prepped what I thought to be necessary materials for the fight, and made my way to the irradiated ocean to make an arena for the fight soon to come. Once the arena was ready, I mentally prepared and held the seafood to the sky as I took a chance in the world of radiation against the aquatic scourge.
Alright, go for it. 230,000? Oh my god. What the hell? Well, damn.
Yeah, so clearly that fight did not go well. The aquatic scourge had tens upon tens of thousands of more HP than any other boss I had faced thus far. I was nowhere near ready to fight that boss yet. I thought maybe I should go back and fight the god slime first, and so that I did.
Holy shit. Stay back, boy. Oh god. Oh god. They are gaining speed. Don't choke now. Oh, he's done for. He's not dead? Oh my god.
I managed to kill the god slime during a blood moon in one of the more exciting fights I've had thus far. The unknown of fighting these new bosses is almost like playing the game for the first time, except I do have some experience in bossing, even if I'm not the best, so that counts for something. On day 39, I looked over the loot I gained from killing the God Slime and found an electrolyte gel pack, which permanently increased my adrenaline mode damage by 15% and damage reduction by 5%. That was an important item of very large value to have found, which just goes to show why it is important for me to kill each and every boss, because I never know what I might miss out on by not killing one. I then ended day 39 by finally setting up my forest and jungle pylons to give me a bit of teleportation capabilities. I made Statogel armor from the purified gel dropped by the God Slime, began using the mana polarizer accessory from the God Slime, which had some sort of lifesteal attached to it, and then using all these new items decided to try fighting the Aquatic Scourge one more time.
Okay. I'm already fucked. Oh, that was quick.
It appears that the Aquatic Scourge was not a boss I was ready to kill even now. I was beginning to question if it was even a pre-hard mode boss to face with health like that, so I turned a blind eye to the Aquatic Scourge for a while. On day 40, I began making an artificial Crimson biome so that I could have access to the Perforators boss spawners in the Crimson biome. They are essentially the counterpart to the Hive Tumors / Hivemind boss in the Corruption. I wanted to kill the Perforators because perhaps they would drop an accessory or a consumable item that I might want to have. After building a very small and incomplete Crimson biome, I went to kill the God Slime once more to obtain more purified gel. On day 41, I used many of the weapons I had previously obtained and the materials I already had to craft what I thought would be even better weapons. By combining several of the bows throughout pre-hard mode, I could make one seemingly better bow, named the Lunarian bow. I took my old bows and was sure to craft this bow as I thought it might be useful in the Wall of Flesh fight soon to come. On top of making a new bow, I also used many of my old summoning weapons and combined them all together to make the Eye of Night summoning weapon, so that little floating eyeballs would follow me around. I ended the day by using the last of my purified gel to make a gel pick. Come day 42, I put end to the Goblin army once more and returned to my artificial Crimson biome to finish building it. Upon returning, I noticed that the spawner for the Perforators was already there on the ground waiting for me to break it. Feeling capable with the loadout I had, I decided to not build an arena or grab any extra potions and just take my shot in the dark against the Perforators.
You know what? Let's just do it. No lights necessary, baby. God. I don't know in mana. Nice. The Perforator hive has been destroyed.
It may not have been the cleanest of fights, but it was a dub nonetheless as the Perforators became another name crossed off my list. As I was moving towards the end of my first 50 days in Calamity Master Revengeance mode, I was thinking of the Wall of Flesh. I knew that my time to kill it would be soon, and so I began constructing a walkway on day 43 in the Underworld that I would use as a platform to fight the mighty wall. I built my walk out to the eastern edge of the underworld and added bass statues, campfires, and heart lanterns to increase my HP regeneration and defense stats all along the way. I then spent the following several days, that being days 44 through 47, reconstructing my base. With hard mode soon on the horizon, I was going to need a larger base that would better protect me from the forces of evil to come. I also wanted the base to just look a little nicer. Nothing that's just plain wood, so that was also a motivator for me. I added more rooms for new NPCs to move in. My chests were completely unorganized and I didn't have enough of them, so I was sure to make a larger area for a variety of chests and labeled each of the chests so that way I knew when I needed a specific item, I knew exactly where I could find it. Finally, on day 47, I finished all the upgrades I wanted to make to my base for the moment, in time, anticipating another period of renovation might come, later on in hard mode. Arriving at day 48, I went to the jungle to finally finish off the remaining rooms in the jungle housing unit. I utilized bamboo this time to give a different feel to the lower half of the rooms. I really liked this jungle house and how it was built into the ground's natural landscape. With the remaining time on this day, I took to mining a couple of the areas in the world that were still blank on my map. I went towards the eastern ocean and began mining underground using splunker potions in hopes of finding extra life crystals to make heart lanterns and any potential chests. It was here that I found for the very first time a brand new kind of biome.
Whoa. This is like space underground. Oh. This is the glimmer biome or whatever. I've never seen this before. This is sweet. Oh, this is awesome.
For the first time ever, I found a glimmer biome. I always knew it was in the game, but haven't played in a while, so I never actually found one before. Nor do I know how it works, but it was certainly very pretty to look at, and I love the feeling of seemingly floating in space when you are in it. Almost at the end, we are on day 49. I brought in the hell shaft and added some extra walls along the edges and lighting to make it safer to traverse in hard mode. I knew I would have to spend a lot of time underground gathering new ores once I hit hard mode, so being able to have space to survive was important, even if that space was just a few extra blocks. I ended the day by preparing all the necessary potions and items that I would need to fight the Wall of Flesh on the final day, day 50. And just like that, we have made it all the way from day 1 to this point in the game at day 50, where I was ready to have my first official fight against the Wall of Flesh. Having everything I thought I would need already prepped, I descended down my hell shaft to the underworld below to cast the guide voodoo doll into the flames of Lucifer and strike down the monstrous Wall of Flesh in a battle I could only hope would be epic.
Here we go. Come on, baby. Well, let's see what you got for me. Oh boy, I reached my end. Arcadia. Fucked up. Trust the magic. Well, I died.
That fight didn't quite work out as intended, but it was good to gain information as to how to better approach the fight for next time. Still on day 50, I had more time to fight before the day was over. I changed up some of the prefix modifiers on my gear and made more potions and went back to take another shot at the wall. This time I attempted a different strategy that better utilized the adrenaline buff in this version of the game.
HP. Alright, go for it. Oh, that did take it down to like 5,000. Can I do it again now? That's what I don't know. Already halfway through it. All I gotta do is go hide up. Never mind. Bam, I'm dead.
Well, it turns out that battle didn't quite work out for me either. I managed to get the wall down to about 4,000 HP, which was the closest attempt yet. I knew exactly what needed to be done in order to make that last push to finish off the wall, but unfortunately in this video, I've run out of time. If you want to see how I killed the Wall of Flesh and then took on hard mode in Terraria, Calamity, Master Revengeance mode, then be sure to tune into the next video where I spend days 51 through day 100 in hard mode, where the journey we are currently on only gets crazier and crazier. It was a pleasure to make this video for you all. I hope you enjoyed it and are just as excited as I am for the next 50 days in this world of Terraria. Thanks for watching everyone. I'll see you in the next one.